When I became a dad, I had a few examples of what a father should be. My own dad was probably one of the most remarkable men I ever knew. And although he didn't really have much time because he worked three jobs to sit down and read to us, he did tell stories periodically. And as I was raising my kids, I was thinking, what could I do differently? What could I do better? What could I do as a father that would make my kids have a really wonderful childhood? And as I was thinking, there are a lot of storybooks, TV shows for children, a lot of public television. I was thinking Clifford the Big Red Dog is probably one of the most ridiculous stories ever perpetuated against a child. No dog is ever going to be as big as a house. But as I got thinking about it, you know, I decided that there was a possibility. So I began to tell my children the story about a dog, and I used my children as the objects. As the dad, I used myself, and one day I said to my children, come and listen to this story. And it was Gardiner, Jasmine, Evan, Jared, and Ephraim. Ephraim was just a baby at the time, not really talking, but he was still there. This is a bundle of joy, and very much on the minds of his brothers and sister. So as I started this story, I told him one day Daddy came home, and he had something that he wanted to tell his children. He was holding his hands together, kind of cupped, and he said, if you can guess what's inside, or what I have as a surprise, you can have it. And the children were guessing what's small enough to go in Dad's hands, that we would like ice cream. And it's like, no, ice cream would melt. Well, what could it be? Tickets to Disneyland. No, that's a little expensive. So finally, they gave up guessing, and Dad reached into his coat trick and pulled out a puppy. And a puppy was pretty small. Wouldn't fit in, one hand or cupped in two hands, but holding them together, the puppy was still pretty small. And they all went, oh, can we keep him? And it's like, of course you can, but you got to name him. And what would you name a little tiny puppy? Maybe if you gave him a great big name, he'll grow bigger and, he'll be a great playmate for you. So when I was a kid, he told his children, I had a dog whose name was Pudge. And Gardiner piped up. He goes, how about Pudgerello? Jasmine goes, Pudgerello? How about Fonzarello? And Evan said, Pudgerello, Fonzarello? What about Rigatoni or Riggatelli? And they all laughed. They thought that was funny. And Jared piped up, how about spaghetti? So they had a name, Pudgerello, Fonzarello, Riggatelli, Macaroni. Macaroni? No, they didn't say macaroni. Jared thought about it for a little while, and he said macaroni. Oh boy, crazy, crazy, crazy names. But as the story goes, they decided that the dog would need to have a big name so he could grow into the name and become a big dog. So they called him Pudgerello, Fonzarello, Riggatelli, Macaroni. And of course, what about Ephraim? What was Ephraim going to say? Well, Ephraim, being just a little baby, he didn't quite know what to say, so he said, Pescetti. Pescetti? Oh my goodness, Pudgerello, Fonzarello, Riggatelli, Macaroni, Pescetti. And they all laughed, and it was great. So the puppy's name was Pudgerello, Fonzarello, Riggatelli, Macaroni, Pescetti. And that was the beginning of the stories that I would tell my children. At one point, I told them a story about pirates. Gardiner, Jasmine, Evan, Jared, and Ephraim would like to go outside and they would play. And they would go over the neighbor's hill and they would look down the hill on the other side to the pond. And that pond was sometimes an ocean, sometimes a bay. Sometimes it was a foreign land. Well, one day they were looking over the hill and they saw what looked like the bowsprit coming around the corner down in the cove. And as they sat there and looked, suddenly they started to hear 16 men on a dead man's chest. Yo, ho, ho, and a bottle of rum. What was that? What did they hear? They listened closer, and they heard it louder. It was getting closer. 16 men on a dead man's chest. Yo, ho, ho, and a bottle of pop. Bottle of pop. Oh my goodness. What could that be? And as the bowsprit got longer, the front of the ship was seen, and on the deck, pirates. Oh my goodness. Pirates. Pirates. They sailed around the corner and into the cove. They dropped anchor and rowed ashore, not on the shore that the kids were at, but on the far side. And they were carrying something. They got out of their rowboat and they went up the hill and they were singing 16 men on a dead man's chest, yo ho ho, and a bottle of pop. And then they disappeared into the top of the hill, into the trees. Well, the children waited, waited, waited. And all of a sudden the pirates came back, but they didn't have the big trunk that they had carried up the hill. Gardiner said they must have buried it up there. So when the pirates left the cove, sailed back around the corner, singing 16 men on a dead man's chest, yo ho ho, and a bottle of rum, they sailed out of sight. Gardiner said, let's get on our raft and go over and see what they buried there. So the kids, they climbed onto the raft and they stuck their poles in the mud and pushed away, and they went over into the cove. They climbed the hill, and as they were climbing the hill, they were looking around, waiting, thinking those pirates might come back. And they went up to the top of the hill. They found a spot where something had been buried, and they started to dig. Fortunately, they brought Pudgerello, Fonzarello, Riggatelli, Macaroni, spaghetti with them. He said, woof, which meant get out of the way and let me do the digging. So we all know that dogs like to dig. And he dug, and he dug, and he dug, and he dug. Suddenly, woof, he said, there's something down there. Woof, woof, let's pull it out and see. So they all jumped in the hole and they pulled it out and they opened it up. And it was a buried treasure. Gold, pearls, all kinds of thingamabobs. And all of a sudden, they heard 16 men on a dead man's chest, yo ho ho, and a bottle of pop. The pirates were back. Oh my goodness, what were they going to do? So they ran and they hid in the bushes. Woof, Pudgerello, Fonzarello, Riggatelli, Macaroni said, stay quiet. The pirates will be here any minute. And when they saw the pirates were flabbergasted. They saw the treasure had been dug up. So they started to look around through the bushes, around the forest. And as they got close to the kids started to run. Gardiner, Jasmine, Evan, Jared, they all ran. Pudgerello, Fonzarello, Riggatelli, Macaroni, he scooped up Ephraim by the diaper and threw him on his back and ran down the hill, and the pirates were chasing them. We're going to get you, you tried to steal our gold. And the kids ran and jumped on their raft and they started to pole, and all of a sudden the pirates on the ship started to hurry and loaded their cannons. They were going to fire those cannons. Boom! Fire, those cannonballs came splashing in the water. Pudgerello, Fonzarello, Riggatelli, Macaroni, spaghetti stuck his tail in the water, and turned into a motorboat. Well, not quite, but his tail was flashing in the water so fast that it worked as a rudder and a propeller, and pushed the raft so fast that it crashed on the shore, and the kids hit the ground running, and Pudgerello, Fonzarello, Riggatelli, Macaroni, Spaghetti grabbed Ephraim by the diaper again and ran up over the hill, and they ran into the house, through the kitchen, in through the living room, up the stairs, under their beds, and they hid. And they waited. And they waited. And they waited. And they waited some more. No pirates. Woof, Pudgerello, Fonzarello, Riggatelli said, which meant maybe somebody should look out the window. So Gardiner went down, Jasmine went down, Evan went down, Jared went down, Pudgerello, Fonzarello, Riggatelli, Macaroni, Spaghetti grabbed Ephraim by the diaper and went down, and they all looked out the back door window. No pirates anywhere. So they creeped out the door. They creeped up the hill, and they all popped their heads over the top of the hill. Boom, 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 boom. The little boom was Ephraim. They looked over the side. They saw their raft, but they didn't see the pirate boat. The pirates had gone. Whew. And that was the end of their first adventure with Pudgerello, Fonzarello, Riggatelli, Macaroni, Spaghetti.